I'm going to bring it all, but you're going to explain it all because you're a rabbi and you know everything. So,
Well, I don't know everything, but I know a lot.
right. You did not go into Judaism initially. You went a different direction,
Completely different.
which was?
I was a professional dancer.
So,
I know, it's so different, right?
yeah.
Different religions actually became very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Afterlife. Judaism didn't ever talk about that. When I was 16, my father was murdered. My parents were at a show in downtown Cleveland.
How did that start to change who you were?
Early on, what I saw was a very Jewish, a foundational idea, which is take your tragedy and turn it around.
Hi, everybody. This is Dan and Dante. Welcome to another episode of Middle Age Mess, the show for people whose first PG movie was Jaws. Okay, so today we're talking Jews, very popular topic in the world. Talking spirituality. We're talking Rabbi Cantor Julie Greenfeld. Hi, Rabbi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. I'm so glad to see you and be
Good-
here with you.
Good to see you too. Okay, first, obvious question and issue. Beautiful women are not rabbis. So what kind of game are you playing over here, sister?
Well, first of all, thank you. And they are. You haven't seen. There's like a whole generation of really beautiful rabbis.
I mean, seriously, we'll get into it in a sec, but let's be honest. Like when I said we have a rabbi on the show today, and you popped up, nobody expected you to pop up. Nobody. I mean, is that what you get? I mean,
my kippah? I mean, come on.
so what is the reaction you get when you walk in a room and say, I'm a rabbi? I mean, most people laugh at you. They go, what are you talking about? Don't be ridiculous.
Well, I don't get that as much now. Just the fact that you're a woman sometimes creates a problem.
Yeah.
And still in this day and age, people haven't really said to me, oh, you're too beautiful to be a rabbi.
I've said it to you many times, Judy. I hate to tell you.
Right. And it's not harassment, I know, in your case.
Exactly. It's encouragement.
But no, it was an unusual thing because you kind of think that the woman is going to be dowdy,
Right.
have thick ankles, and not be hip and
Right.
happening. And that's one of the reasons I actually felt that it was important.
Before we get into all the rabbi stuff and whatever, I like to find out the backstory. I like to go back, way back, as they say. Where did you grow up? Let's talk a little bit about your journey to come on to Middle Age Mess here today.
Right. Well, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. And
The mistake on the lake.
But it's not.
Were you there? Were you there when the lake was on fire?
I was.
Okay, just curious.
All kinds of things happen. It's a beautiful place to grow up. I still have family there. I'm the youngest of 5.
Oh, wow, you're the princess, the little baby.
I try.
So growing up in Cleveland, which is, I think it's the national butt of jokes, right? I mean, even Drew Carey, who's from Cleveland, made fun of it in the beginning of his show. I mean, when you grow up in Cleveland, do you grow up with that fog of, deprecation, or not really?
No, you grew up with a lot of pride because the truth is that growing up in Cleveland is like a badge that you wear. There are so many people that are from Cleveland, especially in California.
Right.
Not often admit it, but once they do, there is this Cleveland. So there's kind of a wink that we have to each other because it's wholesome. Now, I grew up in Pepper Pike, Ohio.
Okay, so the suburbs of Cleveland,
Sure.
the burgeoning metropolis of outside Cleveland.
Exactly. That's a little different.
Now, is it like a little small town? What's it like?
Yeah. In fact, just one town over is a place called Chagrin Falls. Yeah, it was like old town, a small old town. It isn't really like that anymore,
Right.
Because so many people have moved out to the suburbs.
Yeah.
But it did have that small town feeling.
So we're going to talk Jews a lot today. So were there a lot of Jews in your little town? No, were there any Jews in your town?
Most of my friends are Methodist.
Okay.
To this day, I'm still friends with the people who were there. There was maybe 2 people who were Black in my class.
Right.
I was a very small handful of Jews. Now it's almost all Jews. I was called a lot I had racial slurs, anti-Semitism. I would hear things like "Don't Jew me down" kind of stuff.
I
There
still
was
hear that today. Are you kidding? Like every 20 minutes I hear that actually.
there
Yeah.
were country clubs that we weren't allowed to join.
But you know what's funny about, by the way, you know what's funny about "Don't Jew Me Down" is when people, and by the way, for those of you who don't know what that means, like when you're negotiating and trying to get a better price, a lot of people call it "Jewing you down," and a lot of people don't even, who use it, who are not Jewish, they don't even perceive it as a slight. That's just like Jewing you down. That's just something you say, like negotiation. It's weird, and we've been having this big discussion today, and we'll probably talk about this with you too, about like how people interact with each other. Is it culture? Is it experience? Is it DNA? Why do people self-segregate? Why do people treat other people differently, whether it's gender, whether it's ethnicity, race? I mean, it's all kind of interesting stuff. I'm going to bring it all, but you're going to explain it all because you're a rabbi and you know everything. So,
Well, I don't know everything, but I know a lot.
right.
What I spend my life doing.
So when you're a kid and people were making fun of you or calling you names or all that stuff, did that make you become more Jewish? Like you really want to become, you're better than that? Or did that make you kind of say, okay, I'm going to pretend like I'm a Christian for a day or two?
Well, or three.
Three.
I think that it made me want to know more of why I was Jewish, but I definitely hid the fact that I was Jewish
Right.
more. Not that I could hide it because I looked Jewish compared to my blonde hair, blue-eyed girlfriends. But I did not feel that pride that I feel in LA and that I felt as an adult.
Right.
I hid that I was Jewish. It was not the first thing that I would bring up. And I would feel an embarrassment about being Jewish.
Did people, did you lose friends? Did people not want to come to your house because you're the Jew? I mean, was it that bad?
No, never. I never had that feeling, but I didn't have the sense of pride like, oh, you're Jewish.
Yeah.
They were curious. My close friends, I never felt that way, but I certainly felt that way growing up and having different groups of friends.
Did they ever ask to see your horns?
Never.
No?
That I
Okay.
did not get. Did you? Do they still ask you?
I mean, once in a while, I'm losing my hair, so it's pretty obvious I don't have them anymore, but that's, that happens after your bar mitzvah. What about your family? Was your family like pridefully Jewish? Or, did you guys go to a temple? Did you have?
Yeah, I grew up conservative. I had a father who was in the Zionist Organization of America. He was a national leader of Zionism. We even had our license plate said ZOA.
Oh, nice.
The Jewish community in Cleveland is very strong and very proud because it's a J.
No, and when you said earlier, I'm surprised because I think Cleveland does have a pretty prominent Jewish population. It has for a long, long time, right?
Yeah.
So how'd you guys end up in Pepper Pike? What happened?
So that's an interesting thing, right? Because I thought, well, if my dad was so into Judaism, and I went to Hebrew school 4 days a week.
Oh, wow.
A little Hebrew school bus would come and pick me up, and I went to the Cleveland Hebrew schools.
Oh.
And so it was a very important thing in my family. I wasn't allowed to date non-Jews, even though I ended up dating non-Jews.
We all do, don't we? At the end of the day.
That time period of really being afraid.
Yeah.
So I asked my mom, I said, well, why didn't we live in a Jewish area? And there was this sense at that time, and remember, it's post-World War II, where it was important
It was pretty far post-World War II, Judy. Let's not get carried away. You're not there. Come on. How dare you?
Okay, it was the 60s, all right?
Were you in the 60s? No, you grew up in the 70s. Oh, okay.
I grew up mostly, kind of in the 70s, yeah.
Okay, sister.
Yeah, and also imagine, too, I'm the youngest of 5, so my sisters and brothers are all a lot older than I am.
Right.
But I said, why did you, and it was important for him to integrate, and he didn't want to be seen as the Jew. He wanted non-Jews to see that he was a person and that that it was really important for us to mingle and be more diverse.
It's pretty unusual, isn't it? Most of the time Jews, let's be honest, we kind of hang with Jews. Like we end up in areas with Jews for the exact reason you're describing, right? When you go to areas where there's not a lot of us, there is anti-Semitism. There is a sense of being different and othered,
I know. I found it very unusual that was what our upbringing, because I had 2 personalities. On one side, I had this Christian, high school, and then I had this Jewish identity that went to Hebrew school and had Jewish friends from my Hebrew school. So it was just, it was kind of an interesting thing, but I know that that was what was important. You didn't want me to be a deli Jew is what they would call it.
My God, that's me every Sunday for the last 55 years. And then, okay, so you had a very traumatic event occur?
Yeah. when I was 16, my father was murdered. My parents were at a show in downtown Cleveland.
Yeah.
There was a lot of tension in downtown Cleveland with the Black community
Yeah.
and all communities, I should say. But they were going to a show at the Hannah. It was a theater there. And my father and my mother were held up, and my father was shot and died. And they were with another, he was a lawyer,
Yeah.
and they were with a judge and his wife. And what was odd about it is, years later, we wondered, well, was that random? Was it, all those things, and we
Yeah.
could never find out. But it was a shock to the entire Cleveland community.
I'm sure.
And I have to say that, it was in the newspapers at the time.
Yeah.
And part of not living in Cleveland later on was because I didn't have any anonymity. It would
Oh, it
always
was
be,
that. Oh,
it was
wow.
that public. That was your father. Oh, and to this day, still, people who are older remember
Oh my
my
God.
maiden name, which was Savransky.
Wow. And so I think you and I have talked about this before. I mean, that had a real prominent effect on your life, obviously, but in terms of the path you chose because of what happened, right? Like, how did that start to change who you were, or actually
Yeah.
change who you were in like a second, I would imagine.
Well, absolutely. Overnight it does. However, I was always a deeper thinker, probably because I had older sisters and brothers. You're exposed to more. But right after that, I think that things like psychology, spirituality, heaven and hell, different religions actually became very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Afterlife. Judaism didn't ever talk about that. In conservative Judaism, I never heard any of that being discussed. So I had questions, and I was really angry at God.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can
I
imagine.
thought to myself, how could this happen? We had Shabbat every Friday night.
Yeah.
We, had all the Jewish holidays. How could this happen?
I mean, you had a
To s-
really close family growing up. I mean, you guys were pretty tight. Yeah.
yeah, and a close extended family too.
So when he was tragically murdered, so after that, did your family stay together? Did you guys split up a little bit? Like, what kind of happened at that point?
Yeah. Well, first of all, my mom, she was 47. I
Wow.
mean, like,
Yeah.
imagine. Our family got very, very tight. Now, what happened was, you go in stages because we didn't really want to talk about it that much. Because every time we talked about it, we'd all start crying, or when we would get together, it was so starkly obvious, like, that we were dealing with grief. It
Yeah.
was painful to go to
And
synagogue.
it wasn't just grief, it was tremendous trauma. You know, it's one thing to have somebody pass away after an illness or there's an expectation, but to have your parents going to a show, I mean, I can't even I can't even imagine what it must have been like.
Well, it was shock, Dan,
Yeah.
I swear, I think that I dealt with it later. I think that you are in shock for years. I think we all were. And it's interesting because it's the next generation. Our kids actually ask questions.
Yeah.
We just wanted it to be over with. There was fear that these kids were going to come after my mother if we,
Oh
they
wow.
might hurt us. We didn't know what to think.
Yeah.
And all we did was, um, you know, focused on, I guess, survival. That's what you do in trauma.
Yeah.
And my mother ended up, this is interesting, she was a social worker, and ended up becoming a grief counselor.
Yeah.
So, see, early on, what I saw was a very Jewish, a foundational idea, which is take your tragedy and turn it around
Yeah.
and make it your strength. And that's what she did. And I think, there were other things with my sisters and brothers. We all experienced it in a different way. But because my mind was more psychologically oriented, healing oriented, curiosity, like I just went out there and wanted to know as much as I could about what life and death was about.
Yeah.
And I came back to Judaism until I started having my children.
So were you looking around at other religions? Like were you checking out
Yeah.
what Christianity said and Buddhism and other places?
Christianity never was something that I could, relate to, but I did look in Buddhism because it's not, the thing about Buddhism is there's no deity. So it's very safe for Jews. A lot of Jews with, like, we have Jew boos, who you had a huge group of them because
Yeah.
you didn't have to bow down to any one, you didn't have any one God. And the philosophy of it is beautiful and comforting. But I started to do Native American dream work because that that introduced me to that other realm that we don't see.
Yeah, you got a little funky, Judy. You got a little funky there. A little ayahuasca, maybe, possibly.
No,
Huh? We bending our mind.
didn't like drugs.
You can tell me. It's all right. It's just me and you talking. Nobody's listening.
No, I get it. I wish I did, but I just couldn't. I was terrified of drugs. I was a good girl.
Right.
I still am.
Yeah,
And
that's what they say.
so I wanted to heal because I emotionally was troubled, I think, from
Right.
this. And of course, I went through years of therapy. We all did. And then after you go through enough therapy, you evolve, I think, into wanting to know more about what life is about. I don't know if you remember from dating myself, speakers like Ram Dass. Do you remember Ram Dass? Maybe you weren't.
I don't. Sorry. I mean, I'm pretty young, Judy. Let's be honest.
That's true. You're
A
very
young
young.
sprite.
People who were speaking about, and maybe they were drug takers. Yeah, they certainly were.
Totally.
But they were talking about a different way, different level of looking at life and this world.
Did you buy into it? Did you buy into like that kind of
spirituality?
Yeah. Or did you was it more like an intellectual academic exercise, or did you really like believe it in your soul?
I think I believed in my soul the more scientific aspect of it, like that we are energy. And by the way, that is what Kabbalah says too. I mean, even though it's under a Jewish rubric, it talks about the fact that our bodies are energy and that we have a soul.
Yeah, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit as we go down the line, but like what's really interesting about religions, and maybe because you studied a couple different, is how similar they are. I mean, it's unbelievable between like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, some of the other ones, how many of their holidays coincide, just so many things are very similar. You know, we all kind of come from the same place, although we're very different.
Absolutely do.
Yeah.
All monotheists, our root is the exact same. You know how they say with aspen trees, I'm not sure if you know this, but that there's
I'm
really
a little bit young, Judy. I don't know if I told you it earlier. I'm a little young.
Okay,
So, you know.
It's about aspen trees. Aspens, their roots are connected.
Right.
By one, they come from one major root. It's monotheism, Dan.
Right.
And we all have the Old Testament. And that's nothing that I wasn't told that growing up. I don't think you were told that growing up.
Not at all.
We were separated, and we weren't told to take a look at the similarities. And I think a big part of the congregation that you are a part of, our Nachshon congregation, was to talk about our similarities and not so much our differences.
Yeah.
Because in our holidays, yes, they all came from the Middle East. So we had, we were people of the moon. We had the same agricultural holidays. There's so much that's similar.
Well, that's something, look, I always loved about. And for those of you, for full disclosure, Judy has been my rabbi for a long, long time, thankfully. And one of the things I loved about the way you perform services, I mean, you were so welcoming. And you were so like, you would explain what's going on. You didn't assume everybody in the audience had been to that service 5,000 times before. You explained what's going on. You explained what you were doing. You explained what the sources you were getting it from. And you just made it feel like a very comfortable place. Like everybody was a family, even if some of us, like me, knew zero, you know?
Really? You don't know anything?
Zero. Except the 3 things you taught me my kids' bar mitzvahs. That's basically it, Judy. That's what I got. But anyway, okay, so let's move back in time. So now you're a young adult. You did not go into Judaism initially. You went a different direction.
Completely different.
Which was?
I was a professional dancer.
That's so awesome.
I know. It's so different, right?
Yeah.
It was just always something that I was able to do. Loved it. It was very healing. To be an athlete like that is, for any of your listeners, any of you who are athletes, or runners, that when you get into that zone, everything in life goes away. There's a real feeling of oneness.
Right.
And I think that dancing actually really healed me so much. And I saw through dance and I was, I danced every day. It was rigorous training, that there was this correlation to a type of spirituality through your body. Your body told you a lot of things. It was very, the body has an intellect. And I never thought that Judaism would ever say anything like that. I never saw any correlation. And that's later on why I did write books about the body, mind, and soul in Judaism.
And for those of you who can't tell, because Judy's sitting down, she's like 5'9" and 5'8" of his legs. So, I mean, having her be a dancer makes complete sense. How long did you chase that dream?
I chased that dream until after college, I majored in dance. I moved to New York and realized what a crummy life it was.
It really is. And that was pre MTV videos when at least there was a couple jobs for dancers, you know? My God, it's
Yeah,
brutal.
no, it was so hard to find work, but also there came this point where I actually asked this question, what's a nice Jewish girl doing
That's another
with a
question.
lifestyle like this?
Oh my God. Yeah, no kidding. So it didn't last that long. You kind of sobered up pretty quickly.
Well, it did last because I still love dance. I still dance, and I found different ways to express that artistic part. It's an artistic part of me. It's something that is natural. It kind of, moved into my voice, into singing. When I moved to when I got married, I joined a dance company that was an Israeli dance company
Yeah.
that performed. The truth of the matter is, I I love the art of dance. And I think that, and you don't have to be a great dancer, but movement is such an important part of our health
Yeah.
and well being.
Especially at this age, mobility, all of that stuff is really important. I mean, just like everything just starts to tighten up because you stop using it and it's terrible.
Yeah. And so you even can use that and there is movement, believe it or not, in Judaism. I mean, you see the men davening, but even that kind of movement is very important. Your breath is movement.
Right.
All of those things will change as you age, but at the core, it's who I am. I'm a mover.
Well, you were also a singer and you also play guitar, I think, among other things. And
Yeah,
so when did the turn towards religious studies, spirituality, when did that happen? What was the catalyst?
so I did teach spirituality, different kinds of spirituality. I was part of teaching about Native American dreaming. I found a correlation to meditation. Even when I was teaching, when I came out to LA, I was probably of the first ilk after the Jane Fonda era
Right.
of, of
Jazzercise. Yes.
That's right. And I had a celebrity clientele. And what I noticed was even when people would see themselves in the mirror, it was never enough, right? It's like
Well, in
you,
LA, for sure, it's never enough. Can't be
right.
too skinny, too rich, nothing.
But I found when I meditated with them and they began to have a sense of themselves from the inside out, something different happened.
So what were you doing? I mean, you were doing spirituality classes or
I was teaching spirituality classes, dealing with meditation and movement and dreaming. Like I would connect through different wellness, different types of wellness. But I think that my meditations were where I was strongest. I could take people through different meditations and then connect their breathing and their bodies to it.
I mean, you were doing that pretty early. That's before this stuff came into really vogue, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I was
you're
weirdo.
you're a trendsetter. Yeah, or a weirdo, either one.
No,
Rule
I was
breaker.
on the edge, but I started to bring that more into Judaism when I started hearing about spirituality in Judaism in Kabbalah. And that was fringe because in the old days, you were not allowed to study Kabbalah until you were 40.
Yeah, and
And
not prior to Madonna, I don't think either. I think
yeah, it was way prior to Madonna, right? You weren't allowed to, and you weren't allowed to be pregnant. Well, I was pregnant. I was a woman and it was younger than 40.
so.
So,
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. So you would go into were you at the Kabbalah Center in LA over on no?
went once. No,
Okay.
yeah, I don't
So
want to really
so
much
you
about
you walk into these places and look, Judy, I'm not blowing sunshine up your. I mean, you're obviously a very attractive woman, and you also are striking. You walk in, you're very tall, and your legs are 19 feet long. And I mean, what did these old Jews say when you walked in? I mean, they had to give you a little shit, right?
they hated me.
Yeah, right. I mean, you didn't belong.
The men hated me. Oh, absolutely. And I wasn't going to stand for it because I actually already came in with an education.
Yeah, I mean, you were smarter than them in a lot of ways, right? There was a lot of things you were much better than them at. So, I mean, the reception and studying in Judaism is really kind of a collective thing, right? We do it with people and groups. So, how did you get through that and not quit? I mean,
I found one teacher who ended up being my co-author, my dearest friend, Dr. Tamar Frankel, and she was Orthodox,
right.
and she kind of took me under her wing
And wait, Jude,
because
I'm going to stop for one sec, just so because not everybody listening to the show is Jewish, right? So there's like
Okay.
Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox. Reform are like me, who are basically Christians. We don't know anything. And then there's Conservative, which is more Judy's ilk, is a little bit more into the formality of the religion. And there's Orthodox, who are like, with the hats and the payas and very into all of the structures of the religion. Is that kind of ballparkish?
It is. And by the way, in this day and age, there's about 10 different sects of
Right,
Judaism now.
right.
Three major, just like we had 3 channels on the TV,
Right.
we have 3 types of Jewish people. Yes, it was that different. Orthodox are very law abiding. They are, they're very strict, many of them, although there are more liberal Orthodox Jews. But when you're Orthodox, you celebrate Shabbat and you don't turn the lights on, and you're really following the laws, the letter of the laws as much as you can. So Tamar, interestingly enough, had come from Ohio. She was about 10 years older than I am. And but she was very forward thinking, because what I loved about her was she shared with me, I don't know if she shared with everybody, but she was a convert. She came from Ohio.
Yeah. Okay.
She was brilliant. She was an academic.
Right.
So she fell in love with Judaism, and she slowly, worked her way into an Orthodox conversion. And so she was very open that way.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot about Orthodox Judaism, and at times I thought maybe I'm an Orthodox Jew, but I knew that I walked two worlds, and I needed to walk 2 worlds to be a bridge for people.
Right.
I knew what I didn't like about conservative Judaism, which for me was, it was, there were a lot of things that were hypocritical.
Yeah.
And there were
Especially as a woman, dealing with, Judaism, I don't know that everybody knows it, but it is a very segregated religion when it comes to men and women, as you get more structured, as I say. So you were not part of the crowd, and you were not accepted. You were not accepted, right?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. And you know what, Dan, one of the reasons I started my own congregation was because I had to fight through it all.
Well, before we get to that, so before you
Yeah.
became a rabbi, you became a cantor. Why did you do, and maybe explain what a cantor is and
So
how you started.
for your listeners who don't know, there's clergy in our worship services, and in our hierarchy, I guess, is our leaders. And a cantor is the one who is the singer, the one who is also called a chazan. And there were not many. Growing up, I never saw a woman as a cantor.
You're the only one I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
In my life, still to this day, I've never seen another. Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why too, is that Orthodox men aren't allowed to listen to your voice.
Of course.
The voice of a woman is too sensual to them.
It's so ridiculous.
Isn't that interesting?
It's ridiculous is what it is, but yes. Yeah.
It is ridiculous. However, you got to respect it. It's part of who you are,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I get it. So also growing up, you never saw the choir. They were behind a curtain. Like you weren't allowed to see
Right.
the beauty of music. You weren't allowed to play music. You could sing, but you couldn't carry instruments on Saturday. So to this day, many conservative synagogues will not have music. I never thought of myself as being a rabbi. I didn't think of myself as an intellect. Having a father who was a lawyer, I began to understand that to be a rabbi is almost like being a lawyer in Judaism.
Yeah, it's true.
And I'm also very, very creative. So I went to what I could relate to the most. Plus, I loved the music.
Yeah.
There's so many different kinds of music that make up Jewish music. And by the way, I was not allowed to go to the seminaries at the time, because you had to live in Israel for a year. And it wasn't until a seminary came about, and I was lucky enough, I was the first one on the doorstep.
Yeah.
In Los Angeles, that accepted a woman and, somebody who couldn't go to Israel because I had children. I was the first one on the doorstep, and within 4 years, I was a graduate.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing how many doors you've had to break down in your time. You're not that old, Judy, and it just seems like
I have battle scars. No, it was all men in that field.
What was that 4 years like? Did you feel welcomed at all? Did you feel part of the group, or not so much?
In that school, absolutely.
Okay.
Because what it does is it gives you a certain pedigree, and it says, now you belong. Before that, I was a cantorial soloist, and I worked in different synagogues, but I didn't have the degree.
Mm.
One of the reasons I went to school was I wanted to have the degree so that I wasn't questioned. By the way, Dan, when I wrote those books and went out on book tours, people were just ruthless. How do you know what you know? Show us your credentials. I mean, really, it was
Well, you were dealing
shocking.
with Jews, Judy. Let's be honest. I mean, it's not so easy.
The Jews loved us, but
Yeah. They have to fetch about something. Okay, so now you're a cantor in Los Angeles. Did you enjoy it? Was it fulfilling?
I loved it. Talk about other things. Cantors can be really cutthroat, and I got pushed out of a couple of a couple of jobs. Yeah, and that's why when I decided to start Nachshon, I had just left a community. It was a conservative community that I tried. It was ruthless.
Yeah.
It was a ruthless experience, and
Yeah.
I did not enjoy it.
Yeah.
And almost quit at that point, and then came up with this idea, well, you only need 10. You only need a minion.
Right. So wait,
And
let's
so
talk about that because, again, going out as you were a cantor, you weren't a rabbi,
right.
and you were at a kind of a big congregation. I know the one you're talking about, and you decided, fuck this, I'm going to start my own thing, which is like with no building, with no nothing. I mean, talk about the balls. I mean, my goodness, it was unbelievable. How'd you have the audacity to think you could make it?
I don't know.
And there's like a million temples in LA. There's a million temples. Like where you live, there's literally one every single block, like in the South, there's a Waffle House in every corner. There's a temple in every corner where you live. And you said, I'm going to start another one.
Dan, I had the faith. Like I really believed, and I believe this to this day, that you are taken where you need to go. That's how I ended up in Fort Worth. No, but I really believed in a type of Judaism where people could have the dignity to discover who they were. I wanted to bring something different in. And I have to tell you, I look back and I can't believe I did that.
I can't believe it either.
The synagogue is called Nachshon, the contemporary of Moses who took a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And it was really a pipe dream. And I believed, and I found people who believed. And honestly, I look back on those 18 years and they were the best of, they were so good, but they were tough.
I mean, how'd you go about it at the beginning? I mean, I know I was referred to you. I already knew you, but I didn't know where you had gone. You had disappeared. And then a friend of mine had said, there's this new, congregation with Cantor Julie Greenfeld. I'm like, are you kidding me? And that's, when we reconnected. But how did you manage to I mean, you had at your height, you had what, 200-300 families there?
Well, yeah, we had 120 units, right? But it ended up being 300 people. And I have to say, I also had a great team. I have to say, Sandra Gelfat was incredible. And Jen Hobaika, like you need a team behind you. I did not do it alone.
Yeah.
And my ex-husband at the time was very supportive. So I started in my house. I mean, I actually made I made a pact with God. I said, you bring me 10, I'm there, God. Every time you bring me a minion, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And I started teaching women's Torah study. And 10 became 20. And then the kids started to come. I didn't want to teach kids. Suddenly I came early to Hebrew school and they were so excited. And I thought, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And again, you're only a cantor at the time, right? So, I mean, not even a rabbi. So when did the rabbi thing eventually be a necessity?
There were a lot of men that would not even step foot in the synagogue. Not very many, though, I have to tell you. And this idea of being a synagogue without walls, you don't have a synagogue. So when's the synagogue coming?
Right.
And where's the rabbi?
Right.
So hire different speakers and different rabbis to come in and teach, but people didn't like them.
Yeah. I didn't like them either, by the way. I wasn't a huge fan.
I knew it. And I just kept rolling with it. And it was something that evolved. I made a decision to become a rabbi on my own. It's not that anybody even asked me. I was shocked. No one had a problem with a cantor starting a temple. And once they understood that we didn't need a synagogue, that it was even more beautiful to create a synagogue around you, we were fine. And they also didn't have to pay temple dues, which was
that was a big part of it. Kid yourself.
Dan, I do want to say that I didn't even know a cantor could become a rabbi also. And I went back to my school, the Academy of Jewish Religion in Los Angeles, and said, we take a lot of the same classes, rabbis and cantors. So I said, could I come back and finish a rabbinic degree? And they said, yes, not many people have done it. We are starting to do this because the synagogues today can't afford both.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Smaller synagogue. And so I'm part of a trend that you're going to see a lot more of.
Yeah. And if there's anybody who's going to do it, Judy, you're going to do it. I mean, you were going to say, screw it, whatever, I'm doing it. Care if nobody's ever done before, I'll take on that challenge. Right. And so when you became, did that change your congregation? Did it make it better or worse? Did it matter? Nobody really cared, I don't think, right?
No one even cared.
Yeah.
I mean,
you just changed your signature block on your email. That was not the only thing that happened.
It was confusing. It's like, so what, we have to call you Rabbi Cantor now? What does that mean?
Yeah, RC. I never got into the whole RC Judy thing. I don't know.
I thought RC was kind of sweet, but I said, it's the same thing as you have producer, director.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing. And I was proud. I spent 16 years in seminary.
Wow.
I wanted to say both. Okay.
Did it really take you that long?
Yeah, because I did it when I worked. Like to become a cantor takes 4 years. But I slowly from 2000, I went back in 2006. And so I slowly did it in 2016.
Wow.
I finally graduated.
Has it changed you at all? Are you a different person? Same person you always were?
I'm the same person I always was. I think it gives you more confidence. It also creates kind of you almost have an identity crisis.
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I can't? Because it's so interesting. They're different. And so and there's conflict between rabbis and cantors sometimes. So now it's like the conflict in myself.
Yeah.
But I find that the services I get to do are shorter.
Right.
Because you don't have it split between two people.
Well, it's also kind of interesting because, I am a lawyer occasionally, I don't make it public, but I am. And it's weird when you become a lawyer, people all of a sudden think that you're very, very smart. And I think you know everything about the law and it doesn't matter, they can ask any question. And I think being a rabbi might be kind of similar. Like you're the rabbi, like you're the leader of the community. I mean, you're the wise person. You're supposed to know everything, right? And that's got to be a little daunting for you, a person who's never been accepted. Everybody was trying to kick you out the door, and all of a sudden you're
I think it was wonderful in a lot of ways, because if I don't have the answer, I at least know where to look.
Right.
But I think the biggest part of this is to give other people the confidence to know. Don't trust what your rabbi says necessarily.
Right.
It's just like going to your doctor. We live in a new time. And if your rabbi said you don't get to be buried because you have tattoos, challenge it.
Yeah.
And I feel that as a rabbi, one of the things that I feel very, passionate about is I want to tell you what I learned, but I want to encourage you to learn.
Yeah.
Because this is, and not do this for you.
Right.
Because it's too beautiful. Like our rabbis that I grew up with robbed us of thinking that we should know more. And so I really went back to school, Dan, in a lot of ways to say, is this stuff true?
Yeah.
I mean, said who? And you as a lawyer also, you want to go back to the truth. You're looking for the truth. And as you know, you can bend that law any way that you want.
Yeah. No, well, look, you have a history of breaking the mold anyway, so why not keep doing it, right? So what are you doing today? So what happened with Nachshon? Where are we at today? What's going on?
Well, I think that after COVID, we did an exceptional job carrying on with our school and all of that.
Yep.
We bar mitzvah 30 kids in the last year. And unfortunately, the truth is when people finish bar and bat mitzvah, they leave. Dan, you did it, even though your kids came back.
I mean, a little bit, maybe a little bit. I still call there once in a while to say hello.
But always, and you better still. But I think that reality is what, in the end, made it so that we couldn't sustain ourselves from a financial standpoint. And also, we all did receive money during COVID. And when that money was taken away, it made it really too hard to sustain ourselves.
Yeah. And honestly, Judy, like for you to sustain a congregation without a building, without a rabbi for a lot of the time, in a place that's so saturated with temples and congregations, I mean, it was a miracle. What you did was an absolute miracle, really. And you probably could have kept going a little bit too. I think you were a little tired too,
Well, Well, I think that I realized that I was done. Like I did all that I
Yeah,
could do. I'm so proud of what we accomplished. And when this job in Fort Worth came up, I was ecstatic because this is the irony, Dan, is that, well, first of all, my other half is here in Fort Worth,
right,
Texas.
right.
And I've been teaching spirituality, Judaism to his congregation, and 2 books that I've written that you may not even know
I
about,
don't. I didn't know you wrote books until right now.
Minding the Temple of the Soul
There we go. Nice.
27 years ago.
Oh,
And
wow.
now it's people are ready for it.
Okay.
But it's start the day and then how to close the day with Jewish prayer.
There you go. 24 hours with Rabbi Judy Greenfeld.
So
It's awesome.
those, that's pretty cool that it's ready to be taught now. This congregation is in Colleyville, Texas. 2 years ago, they had a hostage situation.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
still recovering from gun violence.
Oh,
When I heard that they were looking for a rabbi, I realized, you know what? I have a lot to share with them,
yeah.
and they're still healing, and I know how.
Yeah. For sure.
So that that called me in a profound way, and I thought, this is good. And
Yeah.
I have really felt that the ending of that just opened the door. It's terrifying whenever, and I know many people, I'm sure many of your listeners, you're like that too. You keep recreating yourself. When those doors close, it can be really scary. That's the middle age thing that you're talking
The
about.
middle-aged
You know,
mess, if you will.
yeah, you are a mess. You become adolescent again.
Exactly. Exactly.
But the thing that's beautiful about traditional religions and Judaism, offers a structure to lean on
Yeah.
when those things start to change. And the truth is, we have a lot to do. I was just at a conference about health and wellness in Aspen. Longevity for us, believe it or not, people live longer when they're connected to their religion because it's community
No,
and for various
well, they
reasons.
talk about blue zones and having a spirituality about you in groups of people is, some of the factors that allow people to live till 100, 110. Yeah.
And it's people who recreate themselves and are open to what's next.
Yeah. So are you still going to be doing all of your other stuff? I know you do a lot of online teaching and Torah instruction. That's still going to be happening?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And what I'd love to do is create an online community. I've been doing a monthly group that's focusing on the energy that's connected to every month. The holidays, actually, there's really a method and to all that madness of all these holidays because they're leading you, into a deeper place within yourself and showing you that you have a purpose and that, listen, we're looking and it's right there for meaning, the meaning of our life, and for meaningful situations and people, places, and things in our life.
Yeah.
And our, I think at the core, Judaism, if you pull away some of the negative things, that the hypocrisy, all of that, at its core is really an opportunity to find out who you really are, what
Yeah,
you're meant.
for sure. Well, I was going to get into all sorts of current topics, but we went through your whole life story. I mean, it's a fascinating journey.
I know we have to do this
We'll do
again.
episode 2. Where can people find you if they want to do some online courses and other things?
I'd love them to take a look at my new website, rabbicantorjudy.org.
Okay.
And that's where you'll see all those pictures that you don't like of me. But
You got to get rid of those pictures. Just send every picture to me before you post it. I'll tell you if it's okay.
yeah, rabbicantorjudy.org. And we will be having this once a month class, and I'm going to take it into the new year as well.
That's awesome.
I'd love for people to take a look at my social TikTok, which is also Rabbi Cantor Judy. Please find me. I have 15-minute consultations for free to just say hello to you and just help you find your way if you're really looking and in the process of your own search.
Awesome. Well, Rabbi Cantor Judy, I love you to death. You're the best, Known you for a long time. You've been such a close and special part of our family. Whenever I'm around you, I just feel welcome. I just feel like I belong, and it's a beautiful thing. And for anybody who's listening, if you're into spirituality, if you're into wellness, if you're Jewish, if you're Christian, if you're anything, I mean, Rabbi Judy she's a place that you can learn. She's a place that you can grow and change and understand so many different things. And as you could tell from those last 40 some odd minutes, I mean, she's had so many different experiences and, and there's been trauma and there's been amazing things that you've done and you've managed to mix it all up into this one big soup to be able to really helpful to the world. And I think you're the best and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right.
Feeling is mutual.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next time on Middle Age Mess. And don't forget to go to rabbicantorjudy.org.
It's not even G, RabbiCantorJulie.org.
RabbiCantorJudy.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe at middleagemess.com, and we'll see you next time.